Dear all, welcome to the first webinar of the project Analysis of the Value of New Generation of eGovernment Services and How Can the Public Sector Become an Agent of Innovation through ICT. My name is Francesco Mureddu and I am a consultant at Open Evidence, which is one of the three partners which are leading the project. So this is the first webinar of the series, and this webinar will be organized as such. So at the beginning, Giovanna Galasso from PwC will present the study which we call Open Government Services Study in briefly. Afterwards, David Osimo from Open Evidence will provide a definition and a taxonomy of open government services. And in the third part of the webinar, we will answer to questions and we provide a wrap-up. Please feel free to post your questions by using the system, the questions window in the system, and to raise your hand when you would like to have the floor. The webinar will be registered and then edited so that it's going to be available in YouTube and on the website of Open Evidence, and also in our dissemination tools. And now I give the floor to Giovanna Galasso from PricewaterhouseCoopers, who will present briefly the study.
Good morning to you all, and thanks for joining this webinar. First of all, the study, I will present the study team. This study is carried out by PricewaterhouseCoopers, so we are the leading partner. Open Evidence, Institute of Basic Studies. We have all experience with the eGovernment as well as with the impact assessment and economic analysis. Plus, we have also Paul Warren as an external expert. He's an eGovernment social innovation expert with a wide experience as a senior civil servant at the Cabinet Office and City of London. The objectives and the scope of the study. We will try to answer in this study launched by DG Connect, the unit public services. First of all, to what do we mean exactly by new e-government services? By open and collaborative government. The main aim is to identify a clear and easy and shared definition, building a shared conceptual model and taxonomy. This is the aim of task 1. The second question we will reply is why are open government services important? We will carry out an analysis of the value, including cost and benefit, both tangible and intangible, of the new generation of e-government services. So this will be the focus of task 2. We will undertake a cost-benefit analysis of at least 10 open government services. And the third question we will answer with this study is how can open government services be fostered by the public sector in terms of innovation culture and enabling factors. So how public sector could become an agent of innovation through ICT. In task 3, we will identify drivers, barriers, methods for public sector innovation through ICT. A bit of focus on each task. We have carried out task 1. We have carried out this task through and identified a taxonomy to a literature review, dynamic engagement, and testing taxonomy to a long list of cases we selected. David Osimo later will focus on this task, so I pass to task 2. In task 2, we will identify 10 case studies And we will select these case studies among the more or less 200 cases we have identified. And we would also like to identify these cases by input from the stakeholder community, from the case owners. We will define a cost-benefit framework, and then we will collect evidence with both classic and innovative tools. We will also use sentiment analysis, log analysis. The idea is to start from these, or the commission is to start from these cases and extrapolate, make projection of the results at EU level. So the idea is to use the data obtained and the projection or the analysis of the value if the new generation of e-government services become dominant throughout the EU. The projection will be related to the EU and the EEA countries. The third task 3 has said I'm delivering a clear understanding of public sector innovation in the open government context. So we will see how public sector innovation can enable open government through methods such as innovation labs, hackathons, co-creation methodology. So the idea is to analyze the state of the art, what is the state of the art of public sector innovation to ICT, to see what are the methods and what are the barriers and drivers. We will get insights from the case studies we have identified in task 1 that will be for sure useful to select the 10 cases for task 2, but also to get insights for task 3. We will carry out this task by literature review, stakeholder thought leaders and stakeholders interviews. We will also launch a web-based survey and carry out in April a scenario workshop with selected stakeholders and relevant case owners. The final deliverable of to give the Commission some policy recommendations in this area. Concerning the timeline, and this project started in August. We have now in December the first deliverable, this means the definition of a taxonomy and the list of a long list of cases. Now we have been working on the, and today is our first webinar where we want to share these outputs with you. But the idea is to share also the other, to launch this online community engagement and share the results of each task with the community. At this stage, we are selecting the cases for the cost-benefit analysis. That will be the final list of cases will be decided end of January. We will carry out the cost-benefit analysis on the 10 cases, and we will have the first results of this analysis in April. At the same time, we will also carry out task 3, the analysis of public sector innovation to ICT, and the scenario workshop will be in April. So the draft final results of this study will be available in July more or less, and the publication of the study in September 2016. Now I leave the floor to David to present the results, the methodology and the results for task 1.
Saying is that the definition of taxonomy of government is usually a minor task, is usually a methodological issue. In this case, it is much more important than that, because we are still at the stage after many years of open government. We are still at the stage where we're not sure if something is new open government service or it's traditionally government. And we need a firm ground to stand on, and this is why the Commission gave so much importance to this task. So what we did is basically we did a systematic literature review with about 100 sources. We discussed with people through online engagement, and we did a mapping of the cases, because at the end of the day, this taxonomy, I mean, we can spend ages discussing a definition of a taxonomy, but it's only a tool to make sense of reality. So we need to apply to the relevant cases and see if we capture all the cases that we are interested in. If we are able to put in the definition cases that we're interested and exclude cases that we are not interested in, and we are able to categorize all the cases that are in a way that reflects what is their nature. And as I said, there are many definitions around, so we built on what was there. First of all, this is just a summary of some of the sources that we use. You probably know recognize the three circles. They come from the European eGovernment vision paper, but the origin of this is the division between transparency, collaboration, and participation, which is at the core of the White House strategy. So transparency is about opening up and accountability. Collaboration means it's about co-production of public services, and participation is about co-decisions in public decisions. And all these issues have been around for ages, because the first Freedom of Information Act was in the 18th century. Collaboration with the charities and private sector providing public services dates back to the age of philanthropy and to the 18th century, and obviously participation goes back to Athens and ancient Greece. So these are all dimensions which have always been there, but which are basically emancipated and empowered by technology today. The European vision paper focuses on open data, open services, and open decisions. And as you see in this image, it basically, the European definition is interoperable with the White House definition. Still, we were not satisfied, because some dimensions were not captured. The idea of government as a platform, the importance of the different role of citizens in design, implementation, or in actually initiating the project, the different things that citizens can offer, which we mapped in the collaborative study, so from technical knowledge to actual monitoring, geographical pervasive monitoring, to IT skills. And the data service taxonomy, which I put here, which shows that basically there are different setups of government, citizens, and business collaboration, depending on who provides the data and who provides the services. Plus, the policy dimension. We need a taxonomy and a definition which not only is about government as a platform and about cool applications built on top of government data, but also about policy making. So the different phases of policy making, and also agenda setting, policy definition, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. This is just to give you a glimpse of the diversity of sources and the diversity of taxonomies that we wanted to use. And we wanted to ensure that our taxonomy was not better, but was able to capture all the dimensions that we were interested in. So at the end of the day, what we came up with is first a definition of what are open government services. First, the idea of openness. So the idea there is an effort to publish elements and components of the service, which basically means data, but also service components and part of the decision-making process, that are more open than traditional government. So the simple effort for openness is a characteristic. I want to underline here that we have an emphasis on data, but also on service component, with the idea of open API and interoperable services. The second dimension is collaboration, and basically is recognize the government can do it all and it needs to leverage the activity. It is actually a mission of government to stimulate and to facilitate the collaboration of third parties. And finally, technologies, because again, for pragmatic purposes, and for our client, the policymaker, is part of DG Connect, and we focus on initiatives, cases, and policies that apply to the usage of digital technology to deliver services. this taxonomy is very high level. This definition is very high level, but it allows us to capture the main features. And in fact, after the definition, we came up with the taxonomy, and the taxonomy is articulated alongside two dimensions: the scope and the type. So the scope means basically open government services are, first of all, part of government. So any taxonomy of open government should be based on traditional taxonomies of government. So we have to deal with the traditional definition of what is government, what is public sector, what are services of general interest. And on the left side, once we have the foundations of what is government, what are public services, we need to describe the different aspects of open government. So what is specific about open government? The technology, the type of collaborators, the role of government, the type of collaboration, the resources, and the cycle phase. So on the right side, you have the foundations, what is government, and on the left side, you have the different types, what is specific about open government service. And this taxonomy helps us to basically categorize all the projects that we wanted in a granular and accurate way. Let me be more concrete and more detailed. We deal with service of general interest, public sector and government. We use the traditional definition in terms of coverage, what we cover. We cover all the different domains, the sectoral domains. This is the traditional UN division of sectors of government: general, public service, defense, public order, economic affairs. This is a very important dimension. Obviously, we want to categorize services based on the basically application area. The branch of government is equally a classical definition: executive, legislative, judiciary, and the level from supranational to local. Finally, the users of the services, this is very important. We want to capture services that are designed for citizens, but also services which are designed for business, and also services which are designed for other governments. So this falls within the scope of our work. And finally, the objects, the public service and public policy. We don't only want to work about the collaboration in delivering public services, which was actually the core object of a previous study we did for the Commission. We have to include also the public policy dimension. This taxonomy, as you can see, is a kind of a checklist in the sense that for us, we need to ensure that the cases that we work on cover all these dimensions. And we need to remember, for instance, that local and regional level is a very important dimension of open government. We need to remember that open government is not just about service to citizens, but also to business and other governments. And we need to remember it's not just about public services, but also about public policy. I mean, as you can imagine, there were plenty of discussion behind about what is public service, what is a service, and we use the notion of open government service. But at the end of the day, this taxonomy enables us to understand and to define what we mean by it and what are the different dimensions. So we now go at the level of types. So what are the different types of open government services? Because open government has very different types of initiatives. First, we start with the way the collaboration is launched. Open collaboration is the easier. I mean, everyone collaborates for free. But we know that, and this is the literature that tells us, that there are different forms of crowdsourcing. One is virtual labor markets, where you basically reward people for their work through like Amazon tool platforms, or tournament-based collaboration, where basically you give a prize to the best ideas, to the best app, like in the case of inducement prizes and hackathons, such as those that are organized by Challenge.gov. Then, and this is very important, again, the role of government. Of course, when we talk about open government services, by definition, we cannot refer only to services which are provided by government. So, of course, initiatives which are led by government are important, but we have to include the services that are built on top of open government resources, such as open data or open service, open API and open services. And we need to also take into account that many of the open government services are not actually, government does not have any role. So probably if we ask you, give us an example of open government, we would say Fix My Street. Now, Fix My Street is a service which was built by an NGO without the knowledge, without any action of government. This kind of innovation without permission is actually at the core of what open government is. So we have to include it in the taxonomy. At the same time, we want to make it relevant, and so we decided to accept only services which are applied to core public services, such as Fix My Street, and that are, even if government did not have a role in the creation, not any role, it then has a consequence on the way government behaves. And the key example again is Fix My Street. So even if government didn't do anything, after the service was launched, government had to take care, and local government had to see what their citizens were reporting about their municipality, and had to react based on the feedback they got. So this is a very important dimension. No role does not mean that it does not affect government. It simply means that it had no role in the launching of the initiative. The third dimension is technology. And again, this is mainly to remind us that we are not yet another study on open data. We need to focus as much as possible also on other dimensions, in particular on composable services, things like web services, open API, and so on. And also, obviously, on collaborative initiatives using social media and online collaboration tools. Finally, we have to consider collaborators such as citizens and different kinds of collaborators, citizens and business, but also other government agency and civil servant. The last two dimensions are the resources and the cycle phase. The cycle phase is very easy, the traditional one: design, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. We wanted to separate clearly these phases, which apply both to service and to policy. And the resources are those that we actually mapped in the original collaborative eGovernment service study. So the IT skills, basically the developers building apps based on open data. The specific thematic knowledge, so the fact that citizens are expert on specific domains. The experience as users of the public services, so no one, for government it's very hard to understand what is the experience as users. Should just provide open feedback channels such as patient opinion, where users can tell what are the problems, because often they are not, they are very difficult to predict. Pervasive geographic coverage, so USHA-ID or Fix My Street are based on the fact that citizens are more pervasive, at least in habitated areas, have a more pervasive coverage than government. Government cannot send functionaries and civil servants running around the city all the time. Trust and networks, because citizens have networks, and we know that it is much tougher for government to change the behavior of citizens rather than for the community of peers. Citizens are more influenced by their community of peers than by what government tells them. And finally, many eyes and many hands. There are many citizens, and they can help with small tasks. For instance, in the case of digital court, which is one of the cases that we map, they are able to categorize journals, old journals, and on a very large scale in a very short time. So these are the key dimensions of taxonomy. Obviously, it is a quite heavy set of definitions. Luckily, Francesco in the next session will tell you how you can look at it with some time and provide feedback, even if you don't have any immediate feedback. But obviously, your feedback is very much welcome also now. I want to close this by being a bit more summing up. Summing up what we just said is that what does it mean concretely? It means that we have, I mean, open government services are not a black and white issue. There is not something, it's not rigidly defined what is open government, what is not. So we came up with a definition, and in this case, you see NES because this was the old acronym, but the new acronym is OGS, Open Government Services. So we came up with three levels: the core open government services, the not open government services, and then the quasi open government services. This is because we had a set of issues and tools that were important, but they were not fully open government services, but yet we wanted to include them in the study. Let me be more concrete. When we talk about core open government services, it's about policy crowdsourcing, open data apps, and commercial services built on open government, on API and Google Transit. Quasi open government services are services such as Intellipedia or Amtenar, so services which facilitate government-to-government collaboration. Here the risk is that basically we include everything, like even you know, the interoperability frameworks, government interoperability framework, traditional government interoperability framework. Yet the difference here is that we focus on collaboration, which is designed to be open to anyone who wants to collaborate. It's not a top-down plan collaboration dedicated. It is a collaboration, an emergent collaboration, where you have the tools and the instrument in place to enable collaboration by anyone who wants to collaborate. Basically, for instance, through Open API, rather than through a dedicated interoperability between two organizational levels. The other dimension is equally important, and it's peer-to-peer services by citizens, which are not which have nothing to do with governments, such as patient opinion or Fix My Street. Again, as I said, we include them in the definition, even though government does not have a role in supporting them, because they are the core of what open government is. Innovation without permission, initiatives by citizens without authorization, without a decision of government to actually allow this project to happen. At the same time, what we exclude? Well, this is easy. We exclude traditional government services and collaborative offline, so things where there is no technology, because it's not within the scope. The third point is more conflictual, and it's about citizens to citizen social innovation. So we want to put a line between citizens' initiatives such as patient opinion and Fix My Street and other initiatives which are relevant for producing social value, such as Mumsnet, so these communities of practice, which are of course good for the society and very much necessary, but they are not directly related to government activities. This is why we exclude from these initiatives such as Mumsnet and casserolclub.com, which is basically a place where people exchange opportunities for cooking together and producing meal for other people. So this is the line we put. A service has to be relevant for public services and has to induce at least a reaction, a modification in government behavior. This is why patient opinion and fixed message are in and MAM's network is out. And that's it. So on my side, this is what we wanted to show. I would like to check if there are reactions. We already discussed this at length, but any feedback, any idea, any discrepancy is very much welcome. And I leave the floor to Francesco.
Dear all, now you can raise your questions either by raising the hand in the GoToWebinar control panel or just by writing your questions in the question window of the GoToWebinar control panel. So please provide your questions. So there is a hand raised by Chiara Mancini. Please, Chiara, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? My name is Chiara Mancini. I'm calling from the regional government of Emilia-Romagna. And I found this taxonomy really interesting. And we really thought that it was important to produce something like that. I work on measurement of e-government services. And I was just thinking how to make it operational and then how to measure open services, thinking of the taxonomy have produced. I would have just some difficulties in case as many services, as some services, we hope many in the future, could be not only local or regional or national, but could go through different level of governments. And I was just wondering how to, in this case, map these situations that are quite frequent in Italy.
Okay, David, would you like to answer to the question?
Yes, by the way, there is also a question in the question panel, Francesco. Hi, Chiara. On the measurement side, I leave it to Giovanna because they are leading on this part. On the definition of services provided for different government levels, this is a very good remark. We can find two solutions to that. Well, first, let me say that this taxonomy is designed to map open government services, and so it's designed, for instance, if an interoperability is if a collaboration is the initiative, let's say, of the Regione Emilia-Romagna where it comes from, and then it involves the local and national level, then it would be, in our case, would be marked by the role of the initiator as a regional initiative. However, as you point out, it is true that this would limit the understanding of the phenomenon, and we would put, all different projects in the same bucket. So what I am thinking now, based on your feedback, is to basically leave this this field multiple choice, so that you can tick in this in the multiple level, or secondly, to add another dimension, which is multiple level involved. So we will take on board your observation in the future release of the taxonomy.
So there is also a question by Gregor who asks which cases do we plan to include, but I think that these questions will be better answered in the wrap-up by Giovanna, who will explain how the audience can give feedback to our depository of case studies. So as the time is running out, I will give the floor to Giovanna for the final wrap-up.
Thanks, Francesco. First of all, I would like to show you the join up community we have on the open government community of join up. This our approach will be to always share all our output, ongoing output. If you go on this, we have this page on join up, where from this page you can access this section, this web page, when you can also give some feedback concerning the taxonomy and concerning the definition of open government services. As you can see, this system of providing feedback is very easy. You just can simply include your comments concerning each part of the definition, and you can also give comments concerning the taxonomy that David showed and explained very clearly. But we will use also this approach, and it is very important for us to ask you for input for case studies for the cost-benefit analysis. I really thank you, Chiara, because she suggested also a type of case that we could study, the case where you have, of course, more than one authority, level of public administration involved. What cases are we looking for? We are looking for cases that have some data availability, so minimum 1 year of activity and availability of quantitative data. We don't want to pilot project. Concrete initiative using open services technology, open data technology, and as David explained, we are not looking for open data portals themselves that only present open data sets. Main features of the initiative, we are looking for open, inclusive, and collaborative government services, not classic government services or simply government strategies for open data and services. We look for cases where there is a role of the government as asset provider, enabler, collaborator, as a responsive role and not a passive role. Yes, we are looking for cases where we have the role of NGO or third sector, for example, but we need anyway a role of the public sector in the case. The collaborators can be citizen, business, NGO, and government. It's important for us to we have been now identifying some cases based on our literature review, but we would really like to have, as this exercise really involve real involvement from the case owners, we really need, would like to identify together with the case owners some good initiatives. You can, if you have a look at this, as the link I'm showing you, you can you find here the list of cases we have identified, but and you can simply add the new cases to this link if you are interested. From our point of view, there is a it would be interesting for the case owners to be involved in this exercise, because we really we try to work together with the case owners to define a cost-benefit analysis approach to open government services. And this can be anyway a good deal for the public administrations also to use these guidelines for future activities. You can how to notify us about new cases. You just send an email to our study email, opengovernmentservices.itpwc.com, or go to the Join Up GS Study tab and simply, as I showed you, add a new case. Finally, these are all our the email. There is also the email of our project officer at the European Commission. So simply get in contact with us. As deadline, we have end of January to decide the final list of cases, and we will carry out this analysis from February to April, more or less.
I will conclude as the time is running out. So as a follow-up, we will provide you with the links that you can use to interact with us and with the project. And we will also edit the webinar, the registration of the webinar, and we will post the webinar in our social network channels and in our web channel, so that you can have a look and stay informed. Thanks a lot for your attendance.